Cicero, Epistulae Ad Atticum, Episode 4. Quem cum esse offensi ordrem arbitrarer, eas litteras ad eam missi quibus, et placardrem ut fratrem, et monerdrem ut minordrem, et abjurgardrem ut erdrantem. This sentence begins with a relative pronoun, thus a relative clause. It is masculine, singular, and accusative, and its antecedent is the brother of Cicero, namely Quintus, since Cicero is talking about the relationship between Quintus and his wife Pomponia, who is the sister of Atticus, the recipient of this very letter, whom he says cum. So the relative clause is actually introduced by cum, but it's placed second in the sentence. I believe this is cum causal, and thus I will translate it as because. Because I thought, arbitrarer, there's the verb of the cum clause. Cum plus a subjunctive can mean when, since, or although. It can be temporal, causal, or concessive. Because I thought, arbitrarer, and this form arbitrarer is a first singular, imperfect, subjunctive, and it's passive. But the verb arbitror is deponent. It's a first conjugation deponent, and so we translate it actively. Moreover, this deponent arbitrarer is introducing indirect statement, oratio obliqua, because I was thinking that he, meaning Quintus, was offensi ordrem, somewhat peevish or bothered. Because of that, eas litteras ad eam missi, I sent to him eas litteras. Missi here is the main verb of this sentence, and if one were to count syllables, one would find that it is almost exactly in the numerical center of the sentence. So a periodic sentence is one in which the verb is placed last, after a long string, sometimes several strings, different kinds of clauses. That's a periodic sentence, and Cicero is a master of that style. But this is not the only kind of sentence he writes. Here we have the main verb right in the center. And missi means I sent. It is the first person singular, of the verb mitto, built on the third principal part. Mitto is a third conjugation, so mitto, mittera, missi, and the fourth is missum. So I sent to him eas litteras. Litteras is feminine, plural, accusative, as the direct object of missi. Moreover, it has a modifier, this demonstrative adjective eos, in the same gender number and case. And as is often the case, eos sets us up for a relative clause. The pattern is is, qui. Is being the masculine singular, qui being the masculine singular relative pronoun. So this pattern is repeated over and over throughout Cicero's literature, his corpus. That one who, or in this case, eas quibus. I sent him, ad eum, those kinds of letters, eas litteras, by which, quibus. Now what follows this relative clause is quite complicated and beautiful. It's almost poetry to hear it read. Quibus, the relative pronoun, is followed by a series of three verbs in the subjunctive, placardrem, monerdrem, and abjurgarem. Each one of these is first singular, imperfect, subjunctive, and active. They are first person because they refer to Cicero himself. They are imperfect because they are introduced by a perfect main verb. So following the sequence of tenses, contemporary time in a subordinate clause must be imperfect if the main verb is secondary, namely missi. It is subjunctive because this is a special kind of clause. It's a relative clause of characteristic introduced by quibus. And it's active because that's what the situation requires. So when a relative clause contains subjunctives like this, placardrem, monerdrem, abjurgarem, instead of indicatives, it's characterizing the kind of action or state being described. It's not saying that it actually happened, but it's the kind of thing. So I sent him those kinds of letters by which et. I both might placarem, I might calm him down as a brother, and I might advise him as he is my younger brother, minorem, and I might scold him, abjurgarem, as he is erring, mistaken, or wandering. Notice the artistry in this letter. Et, ut, et, ut, et, ut. Each subjunctive verb is followed by masculine singular accusative, fratrem, minorem, and erdrantem. Each one of these is masculine singular accusative, referring to Quintus, and the object of its respective verb. But even here we see quite a bit of variety. First of all, fratrem is 2 syllables, minorem is 3, and erdrantem 3 syllables, but this one is a participle. Fratrem is a noun, minorem is an adjective, and erdrantem is an adjective but a participle. So there's a great deal of variety, even as there is also symmetry. And lastly, we must say that this relative clause of characteristic with these subjunctives indicates, in this instance, purpose. So I sent him those letters in order that I could. And finally, Arpinum is where Cicero was born.